Bechir Reminduta. Te Songa Songa Sante. Mita Pagompala, go to Songa.
Cham den den jambe yong ma sha za lo kang ge lo de dim nye den da nye dra nam da ra sra ve chi nye dun gun chi nye zi shre ni che tu kra le ham za kong da si be zhen ren ma re men tam dong e che ze ve ro so kong la pu je dar ze yin la chu ju yong den song Rodare Jero, Nyamon, Yenon, Leke, Jaro, Rose, Jen, Mare, Muse, Dungaran, Yugo, Jenye, Jenze, Ratrenam, Dene, Tajen, Saju, Tarzan, Yenden, Luzo, Jase, Turuko, Chödrak, Chödrak, Chönye, Jente, Dale, Muse, Jambe, Yon, Lan, Om Arabazana de Omarabazana Omarabazana de Omarabazana de Ramzana 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 de Omarabazana de Omarabazana de Ramzana 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 Omarabazana de Ramzana 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 de Omarabazana de Omarabazana de Ramzana de Ramzana de Ramzana de Ramzana de Ramzana Omarabazana de Zeden je Jera Özreje Talu de Momenta Rasrane Kadan de je Jongdoi Dokwaye Loje Bob Non wa zang tu so Namda Tsujimen Serje Saje Den Tenzhen Pomer Linge Benze Sherab Nye De Non Ve Chökun Sara Tumchon Robe Lam Shage Yoru Cheje Kala Chenra Jenkuro Je Zebe Dang Durje Lenda Po Yarve Dan Bai Kune San Zebe Kaiju Rinpo Chel Sha Tso Lo Rekam Sabe Menru Dambe Su Remnye Lamje Lobru Chema Jong Dechen Pujen Debu Terzebe Yongzen Lama Yubra Jela Du Chödong Chöjen Lo Manuro Wara Chijen Signe Chembe Yeshe Roso Yiglai Kunge Padrawa Rigbe Durje Tsarap Nyang Je Chao
Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Tene Tangpo de Song Songa Den Su Shi Giming.
Lazo, da Kazan Shushu, Tene Japsum Drove Semtang, Shangjup Cho the Sem Jebe, Nambani, Saltamni, Jesu Tembanong Romang.
So, as Khenpo Rinpoche explained yesterday, please begin by taking refuge in the three jewels. Cultivate that kind of mindset where you go for refuge in the three jewels. And next, generate the so-called Bodhi mind, the mindset which takes as its goal the attaining of Buddha, the enlightened state, for the sake of becoming able to benefit all beings.
Tene 다른 사마코스캅들라 다 셰헤테 지당 타와카타게 샤제지 군마카미 슈기ye Tati Shugoya Rabute Kararesana Chingna Tawakata Shagjaji Shukende Dacha Tambanyame Tubumpo Kushinagarla Nyangen and Deve Maru Zambla Take Galon Soneta Nyangen and Dagi
The topic of this year's summer course is that of the so-called four seals. Four perspectives which determine what, or one could perhaps say, the four criteria for determining what the Buddhist worldview is. Now, the historic Buddha of our time, Buddha Shakyamuni, shortly before his passing into parinirvana, while at Kushinagar, one day addressing the disciples present, said the following.
Tene tam maungpana khungke tene tenga phardu kashu nangshawa te kangake damchik jabayena
khungge de sungre te
ya khung sungre khunga lojib shenge girinda yaga glongba kasa kalpe te mahim be jutru topje linjin dang shin la yang phebare o ben Sri Lanka do ta te je phe ne tene song debe chö kanga ke damchik jebyon tu ten tawakata shalje ye senken de la dam chömbre.
Addressing his disciples, he began by telling them that all what he had set forth in terms of various presentations of various topics throughout his life, he would now sum up, and that brings us to the so-called four seals. One has to give thought to that after his enlightenment, Buddha Shakyamuni taught in many different places on the Indian subcontinent, as well as in other places, to where he traveled in unimaginable ways, as it were, popularly referred to as traveling miraculously, being able to cover very large distances in a very short period of time. One of the many examples in this context is that of Buddha Shakyamuni in this way traveling to Sri Lanka, where he also taught, where he gave presentations of various topics for the benefit of those interested in the path to enlightenment there.
Penna dambatu jicente Tasran kar pebe kabina yang penna trozena ne peyo mare ring khasan ravo tene che namri ravo ne mebre te ngone juntu topje pe thakche pebre pebe tamchen yang tu thata yang yue debre penna adam pe giringo la sanje bi shabje ngone je ju yue debre la Sri Lanka Lojuki Nando Yang Tingmasum Pebere, Segedua, Sanem Mindawa Chudula Pebere, Segedua, Pearl Shashana Yang, Mount Kelasha the Pebere, the Lion Shabye Yore, Pebe dancing down. But that the Mangolong was sort of shown there.
Now, when considering the ways of so-called miraculous travel, meaning or referring to the capacity to cover very long distances in a very short period of time without having access to airplanes and the like, which we do have access to today, not at the time of Buddha Shakyamuni, evidently. If one at that time were to travel to Sri Lanka, for example, one would have to first travel to the coast of the Indian subcontinent and then down to Sri Lanka by ship, which in that period would take quite some time. However, Buddha Shakyamuni did not avail himself of traveling in this manner. He traveled in miraculous ways, as it were, due to his capacity in that regard. And according to Sri Lankan Buddhist historic records or historical records, Buddha Shakyamuni visited the island of Sri Lanka 3 times. And while in Sri Lanka, during these 3 visits, the historical records tell us he visited 16 different places. One of them is the well-known place of pilgrimage called Adam Peak, where at the top of that mountain, at the peak of that mountain, there is an imprint of Buddha Shakyamuni's of one of his feet. Other places, or another place one could mention as another example of Buddha Shakyamuni traveling to distant places miraculously, as it were, is Mount Kailash in Tibet, in today's Tibet, where there is also an imprint of either of either one of his feet or both. If we now return to the setting of Kushinagar, shortly before the passing into parinirvana, in the context of the Buddha addressing disciples there, having told them that he would now sum up the various contents of all lectures he had given to disciples for the past 45 years in terms of meaning.
초는 뉴용화지 인내 송때 그 메타고 춘이 임바래 대 춘이 뉴베 춘이 대 다가란 라디오인 것들에
The first of the four seals is the following, addressing the congregation of disciples present. The Buddha said, "Monks, all things shaped by conditioning are impermanent." By saying this, Buddha Shakyamuni pointed to impermanence, the impermanent nature of all things that have come to be due to the synchronous meeting of a number of causes and conditions, also referred to as the process of dependent occurrence, in that the things that are the outcome of that process do not have a reality of their own, in that these things result from the workings of many causes and conditions. Hence, those things are also known as dependent occurrences, pointing to that, therefore, their nature is that of impermanence. So, conditioning processes and the outcome of them, what results from them is of the nature of impermanence. Next, the Buddha said the following, and the following then is the second of the four seals, addressing the same congregation. Whatever causes the falling into worldly existences is of the nature of suffering. So,
kam kongmani ki tengen zin sanainda shine ki tengen zin chi gamba yin na yang korwe nang do sakse re songre tene korwe nang do sak sande songde dungye chi le taman rosa yo ma re songre dungye ki rang jin re songre korwante.
He started out by saying, whatever causes the falling into worldly existences. One may then wonder, what does the word whatever refer to? Well, it refers to the notion of a self. If an individual engages in virtuous actions with the mindset that sees a truly existent individual, with a mindset that's governed by or operates on the basis of the notion of a self, that causes rebirth in a worldly existence. Perhaps an existence of somewhat good circumstances, however, a worldly type of existence, which in nature is suffering. And if another individual engages in non-virtuous actions, the same results, namely the falling into a worldly existence. However, here the outcome would be an existence of difficult and unpleasant circumstances, rather, because of the nature of the actions engaged in. Then there are actions in the context of so-called samadhi, the practicing of or the cultivating of so-called stable meditation states. Some of the methods available are about achieving, as it were, a calm and clear state of mind, a constructive state of mind, as it were. However, if the individual who does practice or train in this kind of meditation does so on the basis of a mindset governed by the notion of a self, that will again result in the falling into a worldly existence. In terms of high levels of achievement as to this kind of meditation, the result would be perhaps a rebirth in either of the two higher realms, not the realm we inhabit, where individuals rest in various levels of so-called stable meditation states. However, enlightenment cannot be achieved by way of that rebirth. Hence, that kind of rebirth is also a worldly existence, which basically is of the nature of suffering. Then there is a specific type of meditation called in Sanskrit shamatha meditation. Shine in Tibetan, where the main objective of the meditation is to train in and develop a calm mindset, free from perturbation or perturbations. Now, if this kind of meditation, again, is done on the basis of a mindset governed by the notion of a self, the belief in a self, again, the result is the falling into a worldly existence. And all worldly existences, regardless of their various circumstances, are of the nature of suffering.
Tene nipate che sumbate che thamche dangme patong tongberan jindu tenla phamna khong songye songare.
Then there is the third of the four seals. Here the Buddha at the time said, again addressing the members of the congregation at the time, all things are empty and do therefore not entail a self-entity.
Tene yibate ta nyangena debe kampong sengete shiwa chambore somare telata dungal zawana mebre.
The fourth seal, here the Buddha said, nirvana is peacefulness. Now, the Sanskrit word nirvana means peace beyond suffering. And this level of existence is peacefulness, the Buddha stated at the time, pointing to that we're here concerned with an otherworldly existence.
Tanti jibutella nangbe tan yintöch tekba yinanda tekba chimbo yinanda ta sangman di damshi nana manduwe yo mare yinan treshe jepan to rang tekba la tenne mendawa yung chogre.
Now, both Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism teach the four seals. However, depending upon the school of thought at hand, there are a number of schools of thought in both Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, and depending upon which of these schools of thought is making a presentation of the four seals, there might be slight variations as to the different presentations. However, all Buddhist divisions adhere to, as it were, the so-called four seals.
Mang chewate tan nang ba yin jere nya donna ni to take the lecture yang ko yu jere take what simple lecture tende ko yu jere o dev tende yang zi yu jere tenzo chame ke che nang la tanda ten chen yi ti nang man du zan me.
Now, many of you, the viewers, have probably heard many lectures where various topics of Buddhism have been presented, both as to Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, and you may have read many Buddhist publications where there are various presentations of various topics.
Plagdön tu Khenpo yang tu she nentenchen she go
Now, even though you may be familiar somewhat with this topic, the four seals, the reason for Khenpo Rinpoche choosing this topic for this year's summer course is that this topic is a very important topic, as it were, as the four seals sum up all presentations Buddha Shakyamuni ever gave. And it's a tradition in terms of Buddhist education to again and again give presentations of topics that are seen as very important.
Chikche nipa de laudun tu darin de ta konanzo dago ka yu len dan de kam sambe len choso khani zo che de godi nang kin de son de godi nang kin se ngene yin na yang yang yi shin ne ta ta lo be ngaran zo changma jingi da ma son na turn di karsa COVID-19 singete po ne men zamning kanga pa pan rosa me chu chu rosa me nang la ha de kap la yang yi shin ne Tawa kata sak je yel sam tang se kalam hanje nang yor la
Karingonji?
kalop
Kalop.
ngai ma nang re je ma nang ti nang ne kalop nang ne injing ten la khari yo nge mishi thoma phei ke ten la kalop nang ne tene tawa kata sho ja yel la jing ba di ka ba chen nam be lakpar tu ngolen che tu ba chi song sha de ngolen che tu ba chi song ek sik de ha chang sin nam po chre sam ko
Now, this is not the only reason why Khenpo Rinpoche picked the topic in question for this year's summer course, which is organized by Dakpo Kajiling as usual, and also assisted by Karma Sample Ling, this center in Vienna. Now, we're going through a period of time where the pandemic known as COVID-19 has spread throughout more or less all corners of the world, in consequence of which many countries have and have had periods of lockdown, and then periods of easing the lockdown. Whichever country you live in, whichever of these two your country is in, whether it's lockdown or the relaxing of lockdown, life is not as usual. And at the beginning of the pandemic, the present Gyalva Karmapa, the 17th Karmapa Taya Dorje, started a series of communications online. Some live, some in the shape and form of a written presentation. And the very first communication given by him concerned the Four Seals, and in the written presentation available online in Tibetan, Khenpo Rinpoche says, His Holiness said that during this period of difficult circumstances, it is very important for any Buddhist practitioner to make efforts to grasp what the Four Seals are about and accept, that is to say, embrace the worldview set forth on the basis of the Four Seals.
This che yong tu penang anzu jedang metapa singhe de xie yong tu lai la wu dao ji ndua ko tana xue pe tang tan ni paru metapa re se ya dao ji te khasang da trin ni paru metapa re se ya dao ji nganzu xie nai de wu re ko du yang lai la wu dao ji yo metapa na ngolin tu ye de san nen den ji ma dong na ga lai khao tre.
Now, in general, if we look at the first of the four topics in the context of the Four Seals, it's the topic of impermanence. that's concerned. Now, for a speaker to, in general terms, explain about impermanence, that's not a difficult thing to do. One can point to the fact that from the moment one woke up this morning till now, time has passed, so evidently that points to impermanence. Things have changed from morning till early evening. One can also speak of that one day after the other passes endlessly, and with that as an example, speak of impermanence. It's very easy to give presentations of impermanence of this kind in general terms. And it's also easy for those who listen to these generalizations, as it were, or general explanations about impermanence to understand. It's not difficult to grasp that the endless series of days and nights, one following upon the other, points to impermanence. Intellectually, the majority of people, if not all, would quite easily understand this. However, for individuals to accept and embrace impermanence, that's where the difficulty lies. And there is presumably very, very few individuals who are able to accept and embrace impermanence. An intellectual understanding of impermanence is not a difficult thing to achieve, but to accept and embrace impermanence would prove very difficult for the majority.
Ngal song king kashe chung. Mitakpa sing shed na kargo pa yores. Ngazo mitakpa imba shege du song e kentin chung. Te ngone mitakpa te ngazo yule jartub yomare. Ngazo yule jartub sunga yena. Ngazo tsen di shemban de yongtap sawan me verse.
Now, Khenpo Rinpoche says during all his years of teaching, he has at times, quite frequently, been asked the following question: why is it that Buddhist presentations speak at length about impermanence? Why do we need to listen to the same again and again and again? Because this is something we already know. We know what impermanence is. A great many people have said. Well, it's not just about already knowing of impermanence on an intellectual level. The point of again and again going back to impermanence and talking about it is for the sake of enabling listeners to integrate what they have understood intellectually, to accept and embrace impermanence. That's the purpose of so frequently speaking about it.
Yawa kama be song te la ngolin chi song de tam me ta wat ngarang ge le jartu chi song de.
So in terms of one's mindset and one's worldview, what the Gyalpa Karmapa said in his message at the beginning of the pandemic is that he encourages everyone to accept and embrace impermanence, to integrate impermanence to the extent where it becomes part of one's mindset as to how one views the world, oneself, and all others who inhabit the world.
Tende songdu that yawakama besong jesong ne darin tensu kortos chenas konamba solen de pandu ngarang yang ti kechem bujere tenso
Konamba so
da ko jinki solen de pandu la ngarang yang ti jexet na yawmeong tene tange jexet ta bed tu segen naya kakore de kan tutu jema shugi.
Now, so that's the second reason for Khenpo Rinpoche choosing this topic for this year's summer course, which he did in collaboration with the administration of Dakpo Kagyeling, in that it's Dakpo Kagyeling who primarily organized the summer course. Now, in terms of a very detailed presentation of impermanence, that would require more time than the time available for the summer course. However, Khenpo Rinpoche says he will do his best in order to give as many details as possible in terms of his presentation of the four seals.
Ate ngeke chatige yigjaksan rawte ta zo gayube lamram tarbar mche jen thang tene yembachi tanda nimabe lamram yönderum jinze ni genane zur kantutup chilnge yi tene ta 다고름 제 삼법을 간대지 메네 가주베 추준 점바 속친진 바라고 치르래 테네 연된제 점킨 이메쇼를 라마 Jigme Lingpa shungen tene jilo jata chobjebe nangdu shungwe nime hajang kerup chenpo chire la kaju palayang hajang draba nyebu yo tenke nama chire.
Now, Khenpo Rinpoche will base his presentation on two texts. The first is that of the Jewel Ornament. The first of the two is that of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, a text that sets forth the various stages of the path according to the Kagyu school, authored by Gampopa, one of the founding fathers of the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. Now, presumably, most of the viewers are Kagyu practitioners, and you will be familiar with the life example of Gampopa, so Khenpo Rinpoche will not go into those details. The second text he's drawing upon is authored by a well-known Tibetan Buddhist master of the Nyingma school who lived in the 1800s, Jigme Lingpa, a great scholar and meditation master with a very close connection to the Kagyu school. And the name of the text he authored is Treasury of Precious Qualities.
Teacher on to that the unica codon the Humbina Toma Metapa the Yewa the name Metapa Gamtap the name Metapa Gampiente Tendeci Gene Son Zegadu.
Now, in terms of impermanence, both texts set forth a threefold categorization in terms of the presentation of impermanence. The first of the three in both is that of the various perspectives or aspects of impermanence, the various types of impermanence that there are. The second is that of the various methods of meditation to be cultivated by a practitioner in order to, as it were, accept and integrate impermanence. And the third is the part which sets forth the benefits that come from making use of these methods, as well as studying the various aspects, the benefits that come from also studying in order to find out about the various aspects of impermanence.
That teacher on to Yewatella, Nurgin, Jactin, Metagua Condition Rogueva, now you just simply the Metagua Condition Rogueva, Te son young do.
Tanda Jontun say no la ergo.
Meme,
Tanda Chirtamir Tangre. Tajin young Mare.
Maratanda Telem.
So, in general, Daddy Mitak Yeva.
Yewa.
There is a twofold division that both texts refer to. In terms of the main, not perspectives of impermanence itself, but rather perspectives of our existence, the main perspectives of worldly existences and their impermanence. That would be a better way of phrasing it. The two are the outer world, the world system or universe one lives in, and the second perspective concerns the inhabitants of a world system, a universe, the different sentient beings living in the world system.
That teacher on the Taguramchege, Tarjinginanda, Kandesung Shasana. Shin, Tango Shin, Rapamitapa. Then Tagwit Tarjinginang to Penashin Herjin Jiktin de la Rapagin gain Samnatang Dayam Metapare, try again Samnatang Yang Metapares.
Da Chödrak di Jikten dan dragore Mitapa dan dragore.
The Rapati
Tanda jikten rang, det god?
Ta rakpate jikten la che, ti rakpe chöten so kanga yang metakpa bashik re songyo.
So, in terms of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, as to the first of these 2 points, that of a world system, the outer world, the outer world in the context of the most obvious perspective of its impermanence or impermanent nature, or the coarse perspective of its impermanent nature. Rakpe jikten de khana song song.
Rakpe jikten khana yang metakpa bashik re songyo.
Yeah. Now, depending upon the presentation, the quality or the adjective, as it were, obvious or coarse, can either be conjoined with impermanence itself, or the object one is looking at in terms of its impermanent nature. Now, the outer world, the universe one inhabits, is a very obvious thing. It wouldn't escape the attention of anyone, one would presume. Hence, it's referred to as an obvious thing or something coarse, in the sense of it being so obvious that it doesn't escape the attention of anyone. Now, the outer world, a very obvious phenomenon, a coarse phenomenon, is of an impermanent nature, Gampopa states in his Jewel Ornament of Liberation.
Tate kande song yorsana ngaranso tanda ne jimbin jiktende. Tanda nganso ne bektabroa.
Nganso ne shimpa yang mena jikten ne shimpa.
Nganso ne jimbarwa tanda jikten di nanto.
Laso?
Shin ne jikten di nanto nganso ne jimbarwa. Ne gimbande yang la rakpe chan she na tongbe ne kap chakpe ne kap nepe ne kap tharin jikpe ne kap ye song.
So, right now, all of us inhabit the world we live in. What we see as this globe of Earth, which we live on. We, human beings and other sentient beings, animals and otherwise. Now, in terms of this globe of Earth we live on, the world system we live in, the universe we live in, one should know that our world system hasn't been here forever. It came to be in the distant past. And according to Buddhism, there are 4 periods with respect to any world system. Because according to Buddhism, our world system isn't the one and only out there in infinite space, as it were. There are innumerable other world systems. However, we're now looking at the world system we live in. And with respect to, as was said, any world system, Buddhism lists its 4 principal phases. Shika sung sung.
Yes.
The 4 are the period prior to the emerging of the actual world system. The second, the period of the world system in question developing, forming. The third period is the period of its lifespan, and the fourth period is the period of its disintegration. And these 4 periods are applicable to our world system as well as any other world system.
타텔라 타르징 갑라 데르 제셰시란 앙샤 ngâm 제 공바 뜬체네
응원받지.
야 직딘 플락버도 직딘데 간데신 직로고 여베 꼴 시라시 우치 송샤데
시바데.
제바텔라.
Now, in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, Gampopa goes through these 4 phases, or he rather explains these 4 phases in quite some detail. In particular, the 4th of the 4 phases, the period of the disintegration of the world system. He quotes various Buddhist scriptures, the Abhidharma Kosha and other scriptures, as a support for what he writes in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation regarding these 4 periods.
Tene karishu ta tenzo chenabe tarjin raulu nana peje chinsare kale Chödrak mindu.
Khenpo Rinpoche says that this section of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, there are many translations of it in English and other languages, isn't very difficult to understand. Therefore, perhaps you could get a copy and read through this section in order to get an idea, a general idea of these 4 periods. And as it's an easy to understand segment of the text, Khenpo Rinpoche thinks it's not necessary for him to go into explaining the details of this part of the text. You can probably quite easily read that part of the text yourselves, and you will probably also quite easily understand the contents.
Ta yin yang de la tanda 동보 똥 깔바 세드 간대치 세게 여봐 되네 착 깔바도 간대치 임바 된주 그 찌담네 내 마감이 주기.
However, Khenpo Rinpoche will give some general explanations as to the first 2 of these 4 periods. The period prior to the emerging of the world system in question, and the period of it developing, forming.
대체 용투 다 동백깔바 세드 나란서 탄다 네 옌백인 직딘지 감데 데네 방고 남케 감 찍고마도 다양 매와 똥바체네 다 로시와 동술 먹고 라요 송비요
I have to go back to. So in terms of the first of the four periods, which is the period prior to the emerging of a world system, one may wonder what is present during this period, because evidently there isn't a world system at all. So what's there, as it were? Well, the answer is one of the five so-called elements, that of space, empty space, a void. And this period of a void lasted, according to the explanations, for milliards and milliards of years.
Penna.
Samchin jiktin shanta gilela tenne teniang jik redogero. This song ya erik.
Tati tante lepgirowa.
Lasso.
Tindege tongbin jiktin tindeserlane. Tapena barjik karba nishu greenla tongbachene lagiyorje.
Barkal chikla lotse kande shiksha gorgo.
Barkal chikla lotse ngone shutumido. Te tangenan zi shabane tindendo ta zi nanda de chindo.
Now this is therefore called the period of a void. Dadi namke kamena jikten da tongne koran chatu gemarava. Tini kola leka tikyorva dila levgera vengaso.
Tati lab gonna lobshu.
Me di Khenpo songna matungne.
Ta tongbo tilab da tanda labiet.
Di barkal nishu.
Barkal nishu tongbachene cha de la lagiot.
So in terms of the time frame here, of this period of nothing but a void, it spans over so-called 20 intermediate periods, which brings us to the topic of the Sanskrit word kalpa, very often used in English translations because it's more or less understood by many English speakers. However, in English one would speak of an era, for example. And in Buddhism, an entire era is divided into a number of in-between periods. So the entire era itself is divided into periods. And here the period of a mere void, as was said, according to the scriptures, lasts throughout 20 intermediate periods. And in terms of the exact number of years, according to the Western way of counting time or putting things into a time frame, I do not, and Khenpo Rinpoche also says he wouldn't know exactly how many years that would amount to. However, it's this period of 20 intermediate periods of an entire era is very, very long. It's about milliards and milliards of years. That will at least give you an idea of the time span. And that's followed by the period during which the world system in question develops, comes to be, forms. One may wonder, what is it that causes that to happen? Well, the primary cause for that to happen is the many, many actions of sentient beings who at the time of engaging in the actions that then later on trigger the developing of a new world system, they of course at the time of engaging in those actions would have inhabited other world systems where they acted in specific ways, which then collectively caused or triggered the developing of a new world system, which these sentient beings would then later on presumably inhabit.
Tate condition chakpan go to Versana, Ferna, Tombe, Nekap La, Namke come to you, Deverwa. Namke come teeth and do, Sakam, Chukam, Mekam, Long come to do, Tene, not so much at all, you must come to do.
Leg talk.
Leg talk. Ta come to do. So ne come tenzo pension delvala tene one tane ta sayid dul chuyid dul mayid dul long get down dul singing to tribune.
So in terms of the building blocks of a world system, you have 5 of them, as it were. You have the so-called 5 elements. The first is that of empty space. Now, one may end up with the impression when one hears the words empty space that what could empty space have contributed with in terms of a world of matter coming to be, a world made up of matter coming to be. How could empty space be a building block in terms of that kind of process, as it were? Well, according to Buddhism, empty space, though perhaps not of a very coarse material nature does perform a function. It has a function. And its function contributes to more coarse building blocks, the building blocks of matter coming to be. Because empty space provides the room for the other building blocks to appear in and to function in. Now, the 5 elements are empty space, earth, water, fire, and air. Now, in terms of earth, water, fire, and air, here their building blocks are of a more obvious nature, as it were, made up of more coarse matter. And in terms of the interactions between the 5 elements just listed, in consequence of them interacting, the producing of subtle material particles happened, atoms and subatomic particles. Thus, the land mass, as it were, that make for this globe of Earth came to be. This globe of Earth with its mountains, rivers, etc. And the period of this globe of Earth, which we live on, developing to what it is as we know it today, took the same or lasted for the same period of time as the period of a mere void, namely 20 intermediate periods of an entire era or kalpa. So again, milliards of years.
Semjen leg number not so balatene di nangla tene gozu ne ngazu che ne yang ne debre that the yang particular nishure nebe yente
nebe kalpa
yeah
sumpare
somebody.
So once this globe of Earth had come to be, as it were, what happened then is that many sentient beings took rebirth in this world due to the workings of their previous actions and what these actions accrued. The results of these actions. Thus, this globe of Earth became inhabited by many sentient beings over time. So, sentient beings took rebirth on this planet and then now live and have lived on this planet.
Tene tan de injikten de yang thama te rem je singro yare telen jigpe kalba song.
So that's a reference to the third of the 4 periods, the period of the lifespan of the world we live in. At the end of the lifespan of our world, there is the fourth period, that of our world disintegrating, coming to an end.
Tene parjikarba jashutambatela.
De sumpa de yang barkar nishu erego.
Nishu de sumba ma yeba sumba ika.
And both of these periods, the third and the fourth, each last for the same period of time as the two previous. So again, each of them will last for some milliards of years. So all in all, you add up the different periods in terms of their time frame, and you end up with 80 intermediate periods that are part of an entire era. And that's the time span for these four periods.
Tati kar parjikarba jashutambatela karsin chik sitsenangyo.
Karsin chik sungdu?
Karba chembu chik.
So this time span is called a great era or a great kalpa, not great as an adjective meaning the best of the best, rather from the perspective of its time span.
Ta tene jikde me dogre besana meg mare yang gochu yongro tanda pena tong bekalba yang cha bekalba ne bekalba chen.
So at the end of the fourth period then there is nothing left of the world system in question, and then that spells the beginning of a new round of the same. So that spells the beginning of a period of void lasting for the same amount of time as in the previous case.
Tatilla Jigme Lingpa Yundense Zawan Nangla Shologa Chikinam Tandeke Kanga Dune Song
Shika.
Yika.
Now, Jigme Lingpa, in his Treasury of Precious Qualities, sums up all of what was explained in a 4-line verse, the first verse of chapter 2.
That Harrison at the Sipa comes from Corvée, then Nurging Jicting.
10 nøgejikten, det er så mange de togger.
Den Nurging Jicting, Yowa Chuj Semjin. Take Hangata Dushana, Cha Ne Jik Tongbaye non the Dubare song.
In the first of the 4 lines, Jigme Lingpa says the following. A world system is made up primarily, that is, of 2 things: the outer world and the sentient beings who inhabit the world. And both the outer world and the sentient beings inhabiting the world concern the 4 periods. So you have the first periods, which is a period of nothing, a mere void, followed by the period during which the world system develops and so on. Now, even though with respect to these two periods, no sentient beings have yet come into connection physically with the world system. As was explained, it's because of the results of their actions that all of this happen. So there is a connection between the world system that is developing and the sentient beings who later on will come to inhabit the world system in question. So both the outer world and its inhabitant have a connection throughout the four periods. The first period of void, the second period of the world system developing, the third period of the lifespan of the world system, and the fourth period, that of its disintegration. Jigme Lingpa explains in the first of the 4 lines of this verse.
Tati nekab yiwotela, main the masona kalba, sinjik penna, tombe kalba, chagbe kalba, nepe kalba, njikbe kalba, sinjik, main jetayores, main taking all the samnatana, njikbat some yede consort yores.
So, the 4 periods are called just that, periods, in Sanskrit, kalpa. Now, the name period, if one gives thought to what it means here essentially, one should arrive at the conclusion that Jigpa, kan det så?
Nej. Ming tela kalbasen.
Det tar många mackar.
Jigbeting bashi.
One should understand that each of the periods, even though their names differ, are essentially the same. They are about a basis for disintegration and impermanence, simply because none of the periods last or go on forever. The first period of a void lasts for a specific period of time, and then it comes to an end. Then you have another period of something else, that of the world developing, and so on and so forth. So even though the happenings, as it were, or the circumstances of each period differ, essentially, in terms of their nature, there isn't any difference at all between them, because all of them spell for the, or rather all of them are but a basis for change, disintegration, impermanence.
Tiyinte penna rakpanji tendela samna tangna ya one metakpa metinpa yoveran jinjire
Rakpati.
Rakpa ta rakpa jitin dela samna tangna
Tene?
metakpa metinpa yoveran jinjire.
So, an obvious or coarse world system like ours, if one gives thought to it, no matter which perspective one looks at it in terms of the 4 periods, one finds nothing but impermanence, instability, and movement which makes for change. So there isn't anything stable or lasting as to a world system.
Penna.
That's all. Ini?
Penna tindeke nesute ngengolin yakuji chetubayina. Ngazo neshin benjik ten deyang yaru yang tong tugure duru yang tong tuguro ya. Ti
Mitakwa indi.
metakwa indu kan yinna tugure. Mato chiki perna ta environment sanketa durun rosar ta che yo mare se san ne ore. O de yaru tang tugure.
So again, it's about accepting and integrating this to the point where one's mind is governed by the worldview which sees this, the impermanence. And if we look at today's world, for example, as this is the period we live in right now, because of the impermanent nature of the world, change can be affected in consequence of the behavior and the deeds and the course of action that individuals take. The world can actually be made a better place at any time if those who live in the world truly see the world for what it is, namely an impermanent thing. Because by grace of its impermanence, change can be made, for the better or for the worse. It all depends on the course of action that humanity takes, whether the world will become a better place or a worse place to live. For example, today there is a lot of concern worldwide about environmental change, which is determined to be man-made. And there is the prospect of various disasters happening in the near future even, if nothing is done about environmental change. And environmental change could actually stop the degeneration of the world. It's all up to whether the individuals in the world are able to grasp this on the basis of seeing the truth about the world, namely its impermanence. Impermanence can be a gateway for opportunities to make good, opportunities for improvement.
Yang yakor resong ate yang tele tapatem bakaya yo mare yang duboyang he do.
However, if that comes to pass, one still has to maintain and cultivate the worldview described, that of seeing impermanence, because otherwise it may be that one just relaxes once things have improved, and then degeneration sets in again because of the behavior of the majority. So even though the world has been made a better place, let's say, that can be lost because of those who inhabit the world not having accepted nor integrated impermanence in terms of their worldview. I think I forgot to mention earlier, I remember that now. If this worldview is accepted and integrated, then the attachments that individuals have, attachments in various shapes and forms, would weaken and therefore give room for constructive conduct, behavior, and actions. Now, Khenpo Rinpoche just mentioned the kind of attachment which has to do with the country one comes from. There are a lot of people who see the country they come from as the best and the beautiful, as it were. It's a very common type of attachment. However, this kind of insistence on that my country is the best would not happen if the individual were to accept and integrate impermanence as was just described, because he would know that this place which he sees as the best and beautiful is not of a lasting nature. It may not be the best and the beautiful forever. Therefore, attachments of this kind, attachments that may be a basis for nationalism and so on and so forth, wouldn't happen. This kind of attachment, which has to do with insisting on seeing the place that one is closely connected with as the best and beautiful, would simply not happen if the individual had truly accepted and integrated impermanence, made it his worldview.
Lasso.
So that's all for today.
Sonamdeye tamje zigbanye tomne nyebe ranam pamje jegana je balav truwa sigbe sole rowa rowa shol.